What is one rule that was implemented at your school or work that backfired horribly? My middle school had a no touching rule, which meant you'd get suspended for high-fiving a friend. Girls got in trouble for hugging their friends. Our teachers thought this was ridiculous and would have students high-five each other in their classes for a minute every day. So many kids got suspensions that the rule stopped being enforced and only counted if you touched a kid in a bullying situation or sexual harassment. Not sure if it was exactly a rule, but my middle school once encouraged kids to not touch each other at all to reduce physical harassment cases, even friendly gestures among friends. All that did was get the kids running around touching each other around campus for about a month and a half, screaming physical harassment. As they did so, to add insult to injury, they did it twice as often in front of the admin who made the presentation about it. In my dorm, if you did something that triggered the smoke/fire alarm, you had to do a safety presentation for everyone on your floor. This was intended to deter pranksters from pulling the alarm. A guy on our floor was making grilled cheese in the kitchenette and burned it, which legitimately triggered the fire alarm. Afterwards, he explained, assuming that since it had been a legitimate alarm and not a prank, that he wouldn't have to do a presentation. He was, of course, wrong. So, the next Wednesday night, the entire floor assembled and we were treated to a 30-minute safety presentation on the dangers of grilled cheese sandwiches. It contained literally nothing about fire safety. It was all choking hazards and cholesterol. I was furious, but the student pointed out that the write-up that he'd been given just said safety presentation. We didn't get any more presentations after that. We got a new manager for our office. She was an outside hire and was trying to prove herself quickly, and she was obsessed with efficiency. So, her first week here, she sent out this very rudely worded email about employees eating at our desks. We have a very small break area, 4 tables, and we have about 300 employees here, and that we all had to stop eating at our desks because it was not efficient to eat and try to work at the same time. Through a coordinated effort by some of the more sassy people at the office, they all had their lunches at the same time and filled the break room with about 90 people, elbow to elbow, and they all ate standing up. Literally, the next day after that happened, she sent out a follow-up email saying that we could eat at our desks, but she advised us to take a break from our work from time to time. It was pretty funny. My 4 years of high school were full of my school trying out new policies and procedures to use in the future. My sophomore year, my school decided to make tests count for 100% of the grade and homework count for 0%, but it was still assigned. And as you'd expect, kids did absolutely no homework. The ones that didn't retain information well or were bad test takers struggled pretty hard to make the grade without homework padding it. Our failure rate was pretty high that year. Then my junior year, they brought homework grades back and made a new rule that there were no due dates nor penalties for turning in late work for your 6 weeks. We didn't do quarters. As long as it was before the next 6 weeks started, you were good. This led to students doing no homework until the last few days of the 6 weeks, and teachers had to accept and grade them all before grades were due. This put teachers under immense stress by causing them to work insane hours and spend every hour at home grading, which made them very irritable and more likely to just shove pointless activities and abusing work at us until they could finish grading. You now need 40 hours of community service to graduate. It's recommended that all freshmen do 10 hours a year, while the seniors start as soon as possible to get the 40 hours out of the way. The rule was gone the day before graduation because they would have had less than a 10% graduation rate that year, and it would have made the school look terrible. They did this to try to increase their reputation of being a good school. All the other schools in the area are trash though, so I really don't know why. I'm a programmer. On a previous job, the developers and teams were measured by the number of feature requests they completed. We figured out to subdivide everything to blow it up into the maximum number of feature requests possible. A manager might request a new report. We'd set up separate feature tickets for create button, make button blue, make button respond when clicked, implement business logic, display results in grid, allow sorting of grid, and so on. We'd subdivide a 1-day task into 21-hour tasks. Management loved it. Our team looked 20 times as productive, despite deliberately slowing ourselves down with red tape. My old job had a draconian attendance policy in which, if you were at a second late, you got a 1/2 point demerit. If you were an hour late, you got that same 1/2 point demerit. Demerits accrued. 3 equals VERBAL warning. 4 written. Either 5 or 6 was termination. In addition to making for some anxiety-filled employees that made dumb decisions to speed through snowstorms, it also meant if you got stuck in a traffic jam, you might as well just take your time, stop for gas, get breakfast, etc. Same place also had a similar policy that assured the plague spread through the whole place. Say you came to work at 7. By 9 AM you've got a fever and full-blown flu symptoms. If you clock out then, you get a whole point demerit. But if you sit there coughing and shivering and infecting your coworkers for another 2 hours, till your shift was half over, you only got a 1/2 point demerit. A local pharmacy was built on the same street as my school, and local pharmacies get robbed a couple times a year where I live. To make our school more secure, they started locking every door and making it punishable by detention for any instance of a student opening an outside door for someone else during school hours. Everyone had to go through the front doors to the lobby to show ID and sign in before they got into the actual school. I liked how secure the school was, but when our principal was walking superintendents around to show them our new media production and medical sciences wing of the school, they got locked out after stepping outside to look at an outdoor set. That spot was on the complete opposite side of the school from the front office. During class change they tried knocking on the door to get a student to open it. Everyone ignored them and followed the rules. Those old men and ladies had to walk around the school in 95-degree, 90% humidity weather sweating their suits off. Our principal did commend all the students for following the rules at the next school assembly and said he was proud to show how safe the school was. Cool dude. My dad was a corpsman with the Marines doing high desert training in the Mojave. They had a big problem with unidentified snake bites, i.e. people would get bit but not identify the snake, so it was hard to find the right antidote. So my dad got all the Marines in a room and said, if you get bit by a snake, bring it back here so we can identify it. Not even a full week later they had to alter the wording a bit because a Marine was bit by a rattlesnake and decided to bring it back without killing it. This man had carried this snake all the way back to base alive, and the snake decided to let him know exactly how he felt about that by repeatedly biting his arm the entire time. Needless to say, that Marine went home, and they made sure to hold another meeting where they told everyone to kill the snake, then bring it back. Edit. He kept the arm. They got him to base hospital in roughly 15 minutes and gave him anti-venom. He was out for 6 weeks. This was in 1995 at 29 Palms. He calls it 29 Stumps. 4th Marine Division, i.e. Reservist Marines out of Buffalo, New York. My schools didn't have lockers, as with 2,500 kids and an outdoors layout, i.e. lots of 1/2-story buildings, there was nowhere to put them. And then, the new assistant principal banned school bags. No shoulder bags, backpacks, handbags at all. I had 4 books for history alone, 3 for classics, 2 binders, a laptop, sometimes a camera and equipment, and I was one of the lucky ones. Plus, we didn't have a cafeteria, so everyone packed lunch. Classrooms sometimes changed, so we didn't have assigned desks or cupboards for anything. It lasted a whole month, and tutor/homeroom teachers let the worst off of us store some of our less used books and any equipment we had in their offices. But poor kids worked it out, and expensive stuff started going missing en masse. It was only when one of our assistant principal's own laptop got stolen in such a raid that we were allowed our backpacks back. This same assistant also banned school bells and watches, and we already weren't allowed cell phones. The teachers were perpetually late. When I was a kid, there was 3 major things popular with boys in my school: Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon and wrestling. Yu-Gi-Oh cards were very popular, and pretty much every boy would bring in their cards to play during recess. After a while, too many kids couldn't handle losing all the time, complained to their parents, and their parents got the game banned in the school. So, kids shifted to Pokemon, and pretty much every boy would bring in their GBA or Nintendo DS. After a while of this, an old coot who lived behind the school started complaining that kids were using his Wi-Fi, which wouldn't have been possible if he had a password on it. But the school decided to bend to his will and ban games consoles as well. After this, we all decided to emulate WWE, but of course, being kids that didn't know it was scripted led to us pretty much just beating the crap out of each other. There was far too many kids involved in it to properly punish anyone. We weren't playing around either. I can think of an incident where a kid slammed another on top of the principal's car, and another where a different kid tackled another into a window, breaking it. After a few weeks, there was an assembly held to deal with the issue, and everyone involved was in agreement that if we were allowed use our handhelds or play UGIO again, we'd stop, which of course, the school refused to budge on. A few months later, the school agreed to lift the bans on handhelds and UGIO cards, but at that point, most kids had lost interest in Pokemon and UGIO cards because they mostly played with them during recess. I was in that school for another 2 years after this, and the boys' pastime of choice remained beating the crap out of each other. To my knowledge, this continued for a few years after I'd left too. Worked for a major Fortune 500 tech company in it. One of our about 30 staff way back then responsibilities was to support the hardware/software that ran the front-end assembly. We were on call a lot and pretty much came and went as we wanted. We would saunter in about 10 AM, but often worked very late hours as the manufacturing floor was a 3-shift floor. We'd often take 2-hour lunches. Very lax atmosphere, but we did great work. We got a new, domineering boss who quickly put the kibosh on hours. We were to work 8 to 5 with an hour for lunch. He threatened getting a time clock to prove our hours. Well, about day 3 of this stupid policy, the front end went down with a major software issue that affected many machines. We worked for a couple of hours to fix it, but then 5 PM rolled around. One of us said, "Well, there's quitting time. Who's up for a drink?" We shut down our service and headed for the parking lot, leaving 300 workers with their backs up against the wall, waiting to go back to work. New boss man stopped us in the parking lot, lathering and fuming about our charade. We said we were just abiding by his rules. Things were changed back to the old rules within minutes, and we went back to work. Like and subscribe for more content.